it's Rick Kamla for Fantasy Points College Football, and let's dive into my ATS releases for this week. I've got 5 of them for you. I've got a couple of best bets, and we start at Kansas. Texas Tech at Kansas. Laying 4.5 here are the Jayhawks. It's a best bet. It's a 2-unit play here. I trust the Kansas football program, all right? I haven't been able to say this, I think, ever, okay? That's how far they've come this season under Lance Leipold, their head coach. The Jayhawks just haven't been consistent at home. They've been dominant. They've got wins over Illinois by 11, BYU by 11. They crushed UCF 51-22, and they beat Oklahoma 38-33. They're a very good home team. Last week, Kansas further cemented my trust, going on the road at Iowa State and getting a win. Always tough to win there. It's a good look for them, I thought. Texas Tech has been dreadful on the road this season, losing at Wyoming, for West Virginia, Baylor, and BYU. And I expect those losing ways to continue at a raucous David Booth Stadium. Kansas is 7-2 overall, 5-4 against the spread. And to beat them, you've got to handle their running backs, the awesome tandem of Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw Jr. They have 18 combined touchdowns over 9 games and a bunch of yards and goodies. Texas Tech allows 140 rushing yards a game, 1.3 rushing scores per game, and 4 yards per carry, which is awful. So they will not be limiting these great backs, and that will lead to a Kansas victory and cover here. Again, 2 units, not just one on this one. It is a best bet. Another best bet for you, Virginia Tech at Boston College. I'm not on Tech. I'm on BC, plus 2 points here. Give me the points with a home dog riding a 5-game winning streak. Boston College has beaten Virginia, Army, Georgia Tech, UConn, and Syracuse on this march to a 6-3 overall record and 3-2 in conference play. Has it been impressive? No, but they've been winning games, right? And it's an attack zone for us here against Virginia Tech. This is a great matchup for Boston College quarterback Thomas Castellanos. He's rushed for 760 yards and 10 scores on top of 17-14 passing yards and 12 scores through the air. Virginia Tech is one of the worst run defenses in the ACC. They're giving up 159 rushing yards per game, 1.8 rushing scores per game, and a hideous 4.5 per carry. That weakness is going to be exploited by Castellanos, who might win ACC Offensive Player of the Week. Virginia Tech quarterback Kyron Drones has directed wins over Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and Syracuse at home. It's been a much different story on the road, though, and that's where he'll be this week. Tech has gotten destroyed 39-17 at Florida State and 34-3 at Louisville just this past week. That's 73-20, okay? They're upside down on the scoreboard here. Plus, Drones failed to post a touchdown in either of those road losses. I do expect Drones to play better in this matchup because BC's defense is not that good. They're allowing 26 points per game. But Castellanos has a better matchup. He's at home, and he's going to outplay him, and they're going to win this game. This is a 2-unit play here. And again, we're getting points with BC at home on a 5-game winning streak. Let's go to Penn State. I've got Michigan minus 4.5 here. The eye test has told me that Michigan is in a different tier, a different league than Penn State this year. The rankings tell a slightly different story. Michigan is 3rd at 9-0. Penn State is 10th at 8-1. Seems like they're pretty close, right? They're not. The reality is Michigan is a legit title contender. The reality is Penn State is a legit fraud. Year after year they are. They don't beat the big boys, okay? Let's welcome James Franklin into the conversation here. He is 3-6 against Michigan and 1-9 against Ohio State since taking the job at Penn State, okay? This predates Ryan Day, and this predates Jim Harbaugh, who will not be there. He's suspended. I'm not even worried about that, okay? The bigger trend and the bigger situation here is James Franklin can't beat the big boys. He has beaten these guys 21% of the time when you talk about Michigan and Ohio State. 4-15, okay? Guys, do you feel good playing James Franklin in Penn State given those numbers? If you do, knock yourself out. I don't. I'm taking the better team, and I'm betting against the choke artist head coach here. Also, I do not trust Penn State quarterback Drew Aller because he's done nothing to win over my trust. He threw for 240 and 4 scores last week at Maryland. I'll give it to the young fella. That was a good look. It was encouraging, but it's Maryland. It's not Michigan or Ohio State or one of the big boys. Michigan is allowing 6.7 points per game, less than a touchdown. Are you kidding me? And Drew Aller's going to get it done against that defense. No, he's not. Aller's only other game on this level was at Ohio State, and he failed that test. 191 yards, one score with a sub 50% completion rate. I need to see it from Drew Aller before I predict it against a team like Michigan. Take the Wolverines minus the 4.5 here. Now, the Utah Utes at the Washington Huskies. I'm riding with Washington here minus 9.5. They're 9-0 overall, 4-4-1 against the spread. And they have not been a sportsbook darling, but they're number 5 in this week's college football playoff rankings, right on the outside looking in. And they're different than Utah this year, kind of like the Michigan and Penn State analogy. The Huskies are just on a different tier than Utah. This is not a vintage year for Utah. Last year was a vintage year for Utah. This year is not. Okay? Utah's been decent on the road. They won at cruddy Baylor, 20-13, throw it out. They lost 21-7 at Oregon State, and that matters. And then they beat a lame USC, defenseless USC team, 34-32, in a win that looks less and less critical with each USC loss. Okay, this is by far the toughest road test of the season for Utah, and I believe their performance is going to look more like that Oregon State game when they were upside down with a 21-7 score. Utah just doesn't have it like they've had it the last couple of years. An example of that is getting smoked at home 35-6 by Oregon. Okay, Utah's defensive numbers are elite, all right, but they're also fool's gold. They're allowing the 10th fewest points per game in college football at 15.9. But that number spikes up to 21.7 when you get them on the road, okay? Venue is everything in this matchup. Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. is the Heisman front runner for me entering this week. 3,200 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, in a 69.4% completion rate. Ridiculous numbers. He rose to the occasion against Oregon, throwing for 302 and 4 scores. And that game is the best parallel for this week's matchup against Utah. Penix is ready for all of the smoke, even from Utah, who will be the next victim of the best passing game in all of college football. This is a one-unit play here on Washington minus 9.5. Finally, I've got my Florida State Seminoles beating your Miami Hurricanes and covering the 14.5-point spread. If this game was in Miami, we wouldn't be talking about it. This game is in Florida State. They're going to bang on the Canes in this game. Florida State has been my squad since the offseason. I told you, I told everybody over at Mad Dog Radio that the Seminoles were going to lose the national championship game to Georgia. That's how far they're going to go this year, okay? Florida State has responded with a 9-0 record and a number 4 ranking in the college football playoff. They're also 5-3 against the spread, which we've capitalized on a few times here. Jordan Travis should be at the core of the Heisman discussion. He's at 24-69 with the passing yards, 26 total touchdowns. He's going off. Miami has faced one other quarterback near Jordan Travis's level. That would be UNC's Drake May. He lit him up for 273 with 4 scores. Travis had 5 total touchdowns against LSU, 3 total touchdowns in the win at Clemson, 3 total scores in the win over Duke, and 4 total scores in the win at Wake Forest. These are the toughest matchups of the year for him, and he's going off in every one of these games. Travis has been a rock star in every slightly competitive game, and that trend will continue against the Canes here. Now, Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke is in danger of being benched after throwing 10 interceptions over his last 4 games. No matter who is under center for Miami, it's going to be a brutal matchup against a Florida State defense that is allowing a staggering 48% completion rate to opposing quarterbacks. That's ridiculous. And 17 points per game. This is a one-unit play. Florida State at home covering against Miami. Guys, you're ready for Week 11. Go attack the book. Go make some money. And I will see you next week in advance of Week 12. I'm Rick Kamla. Big thanks to Trey Camberlink for helping out with this broadcast here. And I will see you online. I will see you with Josh Chevalier. And I will see you right here on Fantasy Points College Football. Have a great weekend, everybody.